Yes. Um, Nice to be here. I traveled to India first time when I was 21. That was in 1983, and since then I've been traveling every year, and sometimes even 2 times a year since then. And 1987, which is now 28 years back, I founded a travel magazine which is still alive and now actually Sweden's and Scandinavia's leading travel magazine. It's called Vagabond. And during this year with Vagabond, I have done my best to describe India for the Swedish readers. And for me, to describe India is not just to describe the nice things and the beautiful things. It's to try. I'm trying to describe India to give the whole picture. It could be even bad things and not so nice things. But altogether, my aim and my ambition is to show a true picture of India, as true as possible. Anyway, we saw here before the statistics for people traveling to India from foreign countries, and the good news is that tourism has increased from say 5 millions just 5-6 years ago to nearly 8 millions foreign arrivals last year. That is the good news, but the bad news is that that is relatively very low compared to other countries of the world. It's very low tourism. I mean, if you for example take Singapore, which is just a city, they have 11 million foreign tourists a year, more than India, which has more than 1 billion inhabitants. So I mean, it's a huge potential, you could say, when it comes to India to attract more tourists. And I think, I mean, if you're going to target the Swedish travelers, the Swedish tourists, I think one good thing would be to focus on genuinity. I think India has a lot of, India is not that globalized as, for example, Thailand and Malaysia and other countries in Asia. It's very much, I mean, Indian culture is very much alive everywhere, wherever you go, in the streets and on the countryside and so on. And I think that is to be focused on. I think that is what travelers from Sweden, I think from other countries also, are looking for, something which is opposite what they can find here. I don't think anyone would like to go to India just to go to a modern shopping center. I mean, that kind of AC shopping center in Bombay. That's not the aim of going there. It would be a more traditional bazaar kind of shopping. Yeah, and because that I also think that, I mean, there is always a lot of focus. I think every country does that, not only India. You focus on the heritage buildings, your like Taj Mahal and the palaces and such things. And that is of course an extra bonus. I mean, if you want to go there and that you have these places, but it's not the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is the Indian culture. And for me, as from the beginning when I started to go to India, my experience of India as a tourist, it starts when I just go over my doorstep at the hotel out to the street. Just 1 meter after the doorstep, my experience starts. And that is the heart of the matter for me. I mean, just walking down an Indian street. And maybe that's difficult for someone coming from India to understand, because that is their, I mean, everyday life. For us, that is something different and very exciting to experience, I think. And of course, it's because, like someone else said here, because India, for us coming from Sweden, is very much something that come into all our senses. It's smells, sounds, colorful sights, flavors, and so on. And that's also why I fell in love with India, of course. That is because that is not because of Taj Mahal or because of the palaces. It's because of all my 5 senses getting, a lot of things coming in, smell, sounds, and so on. And the beautiful girls also. Okay. Yeah, maybe. And actually, that is what also when I'm writing about India, that is also what I try to visualize. That kind of 5 senses of India. And another thing I think which is also very important to emphasize, that is India is quite a safe country to be as a tourist. I mean, I've been going there for 30 years and I've never been robbed or anything like that. Of course, that could be a coincidence, but I have a lot of friends going there and I rarely hear about such things. Pickpocketers, of course, but not much else. That's very rare. And I explain to people that I can walk, for example, in New Delhi and Bombay as a foreigner in quite poor neighborhoods, even at night time, and I can feel safe. People don't really believe me. And of course, the latest news since 2012, there has been a lot of news about this gang rape in Delhi, for example, in 2013, 12-13. That is, of course, very bad news for Indian tourism to India, because people get frightened, very frightened. And of course, those news are true, but they create, I think, a twisted picture, which is very bad for India. So, what to focus on? I said genuinity, of course, to be, just to show India as it is. And also, of course, food is very important for Swedish tourists. I saw an investigation published just today that said that 9 of 10 Swedish tourists, when they go abroad, food is one of the key things they look at when they choose destination. So food is so important. And India has a lot to offer there, of course, so it's just to offer that. And also, I think it's also very important to focus on the multicultural society, that India is not one culture. When I speak about India to Swedish audience, sometimes people have the preconception that India is one culture, it's one language and one kind of people and so on. But I think it's very, very good to emphasize that for Swedish tourists. And of course, nature. Swedes are very nature-loving people and looking for good nature. And because of that, I think Northeast India, which I traveled to last year, is we saw some pictures from there here before, from Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Tripura, for example. There are other states. It's a little bit like the Swedish Norrland. I mean, very comparably few people, a lot of forests, a lot of unspoiled nature. I think that is a huge potential for Swedish tourists. And then, finally, I'm going to talk about the obstacles and barriers, why there are so few tourists, international, going to India. And I think one point is there is a visa, and if India could have a visa on arrival, I think that would double the tourism from Sweden anyway in just a year. I think so, actually. Bad reputation from news like gang rapes, of course, that's a bad thing for tourism. That's an obstacle, you could say. Do you know what is the most common question? I can talk about Indian culture, Indian history, Indian politics for an hour. Then the first question from the Swedish audience is nearly 100% of the times is, but what about stomach problems? What about belly belly? That's the first question, and I have to explain that when we have this question and answer for 10 minutes or more. So that is something people are really frightened of course. And I would also say that people are also frightened of India. They have images of India to being very overcrowded and a lot of poverty, and that frightens a lot of people. And that is because I think Kerala is a very popular destination for Swedish tourists. There are other parts also, of course, like Rajasthan. But Kerala attracts tourists partly because of the nature, the culture, Ayurvedic treatments, spas, beaches, all that, of course. But also because of the social progress in the state. That attracts tourists. It maybe seems peculiar in your ears that tourists bother about such things, but they do, and they think it's a good thing to travel to a part of India where the social progress is going on quite in a good way. And the last obstacle I want to mention is the lack of direct flights. You might say that there is good connections. You can always fly via Helsinki or Frankfurt or wherever. Of course, you can go to India. But we have seen when it comes to other destinations in the world, it's a huge difference between having direct flights and not direct flights. It is a huge difference. When there is a new direct flight to a certain country, the tourism are usually going up like that. So I think that would be a huge, big thing for Indian tourism to India. Okay, thank you very much.